Welcome back to the Saturday Scholars College Football Podcast. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. That is in. I'm Shub, and today we are here to cover Conference Championship Weekend recap and college football playoff reactions. In addition to some high-profile transfer news so far, there's a lot to cover in the sport right now, and some head coaching jobs that have been filled and have opened. There's a lot going on right now, a lot to talk about, a lot of moving parts. It's an exciting time in the great sport of college football. And man, how are you feeling after this weekend, just in general? Like with what you saw on Saturday, with what happened today Sunday night, so the rankings were released earlier today. Just what's your feelings about everything?
There were a couple of good games, but for the most part, conference championship weekend was kind of disappointing. It's pretty one-sided for the most part, aside from two really good games being the SEC championship, and then Friday being the Pac-12 championship. Other than that, yeah, I mean, it was kind of a rout for most of these matchups. But except for, I would say the FSU Louisville game was a nice little rock fight to watch, given the circumstances and what was on the line, and we knew it was on the line. And let's talk about it, man. I mean, FSU, despite being down, to their bare bones, goes undefeated. And the committee decides it's not good enough. Bama, you are in. Michigan 1, Washington 2, Texas 3, Bama 4. Shub, is this fair? Do you agree with this committee ranking?
I do not agree with it. And here's my thing. These were the two things that I was really most looking forward to seeing. I guess looking forward to, or at least intrigued by, was one, it was how much was that Texas over Alabama head to head? Like, how much was that going to apply in this situation? I thought it probably would, and I was pretty steadfast. Like, yeah, there's no way Texas is not in the playoff, especially after the committee has consistently had Texas one spot ahead of Alabama this whole time. And I know Alabama just got a huge win over Georgia, who was the number one team, and they do have a conference championship. So that is a pretty good bump up for Bama. But at the same time, Texas did rout Oklahoma State in the Big 12 championship. I know it's not nearly as impressive of a win, but at the same time, it's like, I don't think really anything really changed in terms of Texas' resume versus Alabama's resume, not significantly enough to where you can say, oh, yeah, it's time to overturn that head to head. You just can't do that. So I knew Texas was going to be in. Like, I was very, very confident in that. And then it literally came down to what the whole, shebang was this morning. It was Alabama or Florida State. And it was, do you want to take the team who's the better team, or do you want to take the team who is the most deserving team? And to me, I think it should have been the team that was most deserving. And I know a lot of people say, well, it's supposed to be the four best teams. They always say, it's in their stupid saying they have is, oh, it's the four best teams. No, it's never been the four best teams. It has never been the four best teams. Cincinnati was in the playoff one year. Cincinnati deserved to be in 100%, but they were not one of the four best teams. We all know that. TCU deserved to be in it last year, but we all know they were not one of the four best teams. It has never been the four best teams. It has always been the four most deserving teams, and that's how it should be. It should be the four most deserving teams.
That's
Florida State deserved to be in.
That's what's interesting, man, because this year the committee changed their whole precedent. Like they completely did not follow their own precedent. And I don't know if that's just a little bit of SEC bias, wherever the case may be. But look, from a competitive standpoint, I think the committee was looking at it this way: rating. And here's what I mean by that. I'm not saying Bama draws better ratings than FSU. They probably do, but I mean, FSU is still a big brand. But ratings as in FSU without Jordan Travis and a third string quarterback is probably going to get trounced in the first round. And people are going to be tuning out by halftime. Or you can put Alabama in, have Alabama play Michigan, and then have a really good game that people are going to watch all the way throughout the game. More ad revenue, more everything. Everyone makes more money. And that's what I think it ultimately came down to. I think the committee didn't like the idea of one of the games being potentially non-competitive, despite Florida State deserving to be in it. And I'm with you, Shub. I 100% think Florida State should have been. I think Florida State absolutely got hosed. If it were my team that went 13-0, and it's not like they're even a G5. Florida State is like a blue blood Power 5 school, and they still got left out. Um, that's just amazing to me. So the committee has established precedent that if you go undefeated and you've had, a major injury to one of your key players, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. That's it. That's all it takes. It doesn't matter if you overcome adversity or what this may be. That's enough to get you kicked out of the game. And I feel for FSU, man, because yeah, you get to go play Georgia. Nice, it's a good matchup, I guess, on paper for yay, we get to play a really competitive team in bowl season. But come on, you don't if I was an FSU fan, I wouldn't even be excited to play that game. But it's just the fact that the committee changed the precedent, Shub, is ultimately why I have such an issue with this. Because they are changing their whole precedent now based on how they have done it since the dawn of the college football playoff. And I have a problem with it. I know that this is the most competitive format, and all of these games are going to be hella competitive, man. I mean, they're going to all be very, very good games, and I can't wait to watch it. But yes, I understand why the committee did it. I don't agree with why the committee did it.
So there's a few things here. One, if the committee was to have put an FSU ahead of Alabama, and Alabama was the team at number 5, there'd be a lot of Alabama fans and players probably being really pissed and really upset, like we see from FSU
and Georgia.
But I mean, let's be real here. It was really Alabama. Alabama beat Georgia head to head. Like, it was Alabama. They're the only ones that would have had any sort of leg to stand on. But the question is, how much of a leg would Alabama have had to stand on if Alabama was the one that got left out and they were the ones complaining and feeling like they got completely screwed over by the committee? How big do you think that leg to stand on would have been?
I think it would have, look, I think either way you slice it, the team who got left out has a leg to stand on. 100%. Alabama's a great team. They won the SEC. The SEC champion, just for even though it's a top heavy conference, winning and being the team that comes out of the top there is still majorly impressive, especially with how Alabama started. Alabama has only gotten better, and Jalen Milroe has continued to improve. So, I mean, we all doubted Bama, and Nick Saban, pulls a Nick Saban. And here we are. Alabama's in the dance, man. Hell of a coaching job, hell of a bounce back by Bama. Bama is one of the best 4 teams, 100%. But if we're going to go with one of the best 4 teams, I mean, they would have probably threw Georgia in there. You could argue they're one of the best 4 teams.
Oh, they possibly
are. I mean, yeah, exactly.
It's never been about
that's what Kirby Smart was saying after they lost. He said, "Well, you should put the best 4 teams in." Well, then that's why. Then why play the game? If we're just going to put the teams with the best 4 rosters every time. Why even play the games? And that's why I think, that's why I think it's such a travesty. Why play the games? FSU went 13-0. Why even play the games if you're not going to make the playoffs?
And there's also some resume credence to this too, I think, in FSU's favor here, because listen, there's no denying that Florida State did not play the greatest strength of schedule. Their strength of schedule, and I'm using Sagarin because I like to use those ratings instead of stupid ESPN's FPI, which is terrible. Florida State played the 61st strength of schedule, so in the country this year. It was not the greatest. Alabama played the 12th greatest strength of schedule. So there's no denying that Alabama played a harder schedule. They both had some bad games. Like, Florida State had a 1-score win versus Clemson. They had a 1-score win versus Miami. They looked really bad against Florida, but then again, Jordan Travis was hurt. They didn't look great against Louisville. Well, the defense looked tremendous. The defense played like elite, lights out. The defensive line too is on another level. That's side note. Anyways, there's no denying that both teams had some hiccups and looked bad. I mean, let's not forget, Alabama is not in this position at all if Auburn just competently covers a 4th and 30 Hail Mary situation in the Iron Bowl. Think about that. That was only a week and not even 9 days ago. That's how close Alabama was to not even being in this position. That team nearly lost to a 6-6 Auburn team that got smoked by New Mexico State the week prior. Alabama also, granted without Jalen Milroe, looked absolutely horrendous and nearly lost to USF not UCF, USF, South Florida. Remember that
They
game in
improved
September?
drastically. Yep.
Alabama looked horrible against a G5 team. Like,
A
there's
G5 team who won a game the year before.
exactly.
Went
So
1-11.
the way I look at it is you got Alabama's great wins. You have Alabama who has a very good win over Ole Miss. They have a very good win over LSU, and then they have an elite win against Georgia. Florida State's best win is Louisville and LSU. Those are their best wins. Those ranked wins. So Alabama's resume definitely looks better. The thing is, Alabama also has a loss that's holding them down. Now, that loss was to Texas, granted, who's in the college football playoff. So you can't really hold that loss against them. But when you basically like combine those things together, it's like you have an undefeated team that didn't have as many great wins, still a handful of good wins, and then a one-loss team that has 3 really good wins, 1 elite win, but still lost. I think they're kind of in the same resume, like ballpark tier. Like there's nothing on that says like they're separated greatly from one or the other. So what do you do when they're in the same tier in terms of resume? You're supposed to look at conference championships. That's what the committee says. They look at conference championships, they look at head-to-head results, and then they look at strength of schedule. Both have conference championships. All right. Head-to-head comparisons. They both played LSU. That's the one team that Florida State and Alabama both played was LSU. Alabama beat LSU by 14 points at home. It was a good win for them. Florida State. What did Florida State do to LSU? Week 1 of the season, Florida State smoked LSU 45-24. That's a common opponent. And that common opponent on a neutral field, Florida State outscored LSU more than Alabama outscored LSU at home in Bryant-Denny. I'm like, listen, it's pins and needles here, but I'd say it should be Florida State. And you can't hold the Jordan Travis injury against them. Like, are you going to hold Jalen Milroe being benched for Bama's terrible performance against South Florida? No. The committee clearly didn't. Yeah. I'm a Florida Gator through and through, but man, I'm not gonna lie. I think FSU got screwed here. I think they did. But I will say this as a fan, I will definitely enjoy this Alabama-Michigan matchup way more than I would a Florida State-Michigan matchup. Like I was talking to my dad and a few other people, they were like, yeah, I wouldn't even bother watching if Florida State was in that game. So I get
Yeah,
that.
and I think that's why the committee made their decision. Ultimately, the committee's like, who's going to watch this? You know, um, but yeah, I mean, it's tough, man. It's tough out here. I had something I wanted to add to that, but I mean, I kind of lost my train of thought in the middle of it, just kind of thinking of it. Long day at work, but yeah, either way you slice it, someone was going to get screwed. Someone was going to get
Yes,
screwed in this situation. This would have been the perfect year for the expanded playoff because even some of the teams, I mean, outside of that, Georgia, even 2 lost Oregon. I mean, they only lost to Washington, granted twice, but Oregon has been a wagon outside of playing Washington. I would have loved to have seen Oregon in an expanded playoff as an at large.
agreed.
Um, yeah, it would have been the perfect year for that. It would have been the perfect year. But let me ask you this: I found my thought. I found my thought. If the shoe were on the other foot, records and quarterback injuries aside, and Jalen Milroe got hurt, and Tyler Buckner is walking out there, the quarterback for
Oh,
Alabama, but Travis is still healthy. But a 12-1 FSU conference champion versus a 13-0 Bama who wins by way of their defense, but their offense is completely incompetent. Do you think the committee makes the same decision? I don't think so. I think they'd still put Bama in. I think it's a little bit of favoritism.
man, that is a great hypothetical. You know what? I want to play Mr. Sensible here and reject that, but I think I agree with you, man. I think I agree with you on that. Listen, Alabama's gotten the benefit of the doubt plenty of times here. They've gotten the benefit of the doubt. Remember 2011? You and me as Oklahoma State fans, I think we can very much relate to Alabama getting the benefit of the doubt when it comes to these types of situations.
Yep.
I think we all remember that. Everybody knows 2011. That's the whole reason we have the 14 playoff is because that Oklahoma State versus Alabama for the BCS championship debacle. So I'll say this as an Oklahoma State fan, I can totally relate to Florida State, though this is different circumstances, somewhat different circumstances. But yeah, listen, I totally get it, and I don't know.
Shub, I have one more hypothetical to throw out before we move on. Say the Milrow miracle falls short, doesn't come to fruition. We know that in the most recent rankings, FSU got put at the 5 spot over Georgia as like more of like a pity spot. Like, yeah, we didn't put you in, but we'll put you over Georgia. Yay! Put the sticker on the fridge. Um, but what if the Milrow miracle falls short, and then Bama beats Georgia? Georgia's still one loss, and because Bama would still be two lost to be eliminated from the playoff, and then you still have 13-0 FSU under the same circumstances. Do you think they would have put Georgia in at 4 or FSU?
Yeah, so it would basically be the same exact circumstances, except replace Alabama with Georgia, and Georgia would have the same record, but not a conference championship.
And their
Well,
one loss would be to Bama by 3.
I think it'd be even more egregious if they had put in Georgia over Florida State in that circumstance, because Georgia
Yeah,
wouldn't have
because
had
non-conference
even a
champ.
conference championship. Yeah. So at least Alabama has a conference championship. So there's that. So like there is a leg to
But
stand
do
on.
you
But
think, based upon what the committee did
uh,
this time, if that scenario played out, do you think the committee would have put Georgia in over FSU? I think they
I
would have.
say no. Maybe I'll draw the line here. I don't think they would have, because then it's like the more you just push the line there, I feel like that gets even more egregious, because Georgia would not be a conference champ, and Georgia's resume is not even close to Alabama's. And in that situation, Georgia's resume would not even be close to what Alabama's is right now. So
It's
I'd
possible,
say
man.
there's
But
like,
I'm thinking in terms of ratings. I'm thinking in terms of ratings.
yeah.
Georgia versus Michigan. You know the ratings would be on that.
Oh, I
I
know.
think they would do it, man. I know it comes out as egregious, but at the end of the day, I think money talks, and I think that's ultimately why FSU got punished here. I think that's why
Money
FSU got held out.
talks. Money talks, but remember
More
last
people are
year
going
they
to watch
put in
Bama than
TCU.
FSU.
Listen, last year's committee put in
Couldn't leave.
TCU.
Well,
The other committee before that put in
but the circumstances
Cincinnati.
were different last year. There weren't a solid 6 teams that could arguably make the playoff last year.
Yeah. Hey, listen, I think the committee has gotten it right just about every single year except for this year and then 2014. So literally, I think the committee's actually gotten it right every year except the first year and the last year of the college football of the 14 playoff, which is kind of funny to me. But yeah, I mean, hey, listen, the point is, I
Well,
think we understand both sides of the argument here. But yeah, those are good questions, man. It definitely makes you think. And there is a point I'll get to later on in this podcast that I want to bring up, because it does kind of the committee did kind of contradict itself, but we'll get to that. So, in terms of the other teams in the playoff, though, I mean, let's just talk about these matchups really quick. Just off the bat, Michigan at number one. Michigan's number one. I think you can make an argument Washington should be number one, but I know nobody cares about that because it's just seeding. But like, I really think you could make an argument that Washington should be number one over Michigan, because Washington's
I
resume
think
is really
Washington's probably
good.
grateful they're not number one. I would want to play a hot Bama team right now.
So yeah, so that's a whole other thing. Like it's not that big of a deal. And honestly, I like the matchups the way they are. Like if I knew these were going to be the four teams, I would have said, okay, I hope we get Michigan, Bama, and then Washington, Texas, because those would be like the most optimal like matchups, semifinal
These
matchups from an entertainment perspective, and we got it.
these are all going to be amazing matchups. All of
Let's
them.
go.
I think 1 through 4 here. I think you could just put a random number generator, mix them up randomly, and no matter what matchup comes out, it's going to be a good matchup. That's what I think about this. So, with that being said, who do you think will be in the championship game, Chew? If you had to pick right now, gun to your head.
Well, I will pick right now, gun to my head, but these are not our official picks. We're gonna wait and we're gonna let all this simmer before we do our official picks later on this month. But right now, a day after the conference championship games, I would say I would pick Bama to beat Michigan. I think that I don't know. I just got a feeling, man, but we'll see. And then I would probably pick Texas to beat Washington.
That's what I think too. I think we're gonna have a Texas Bama rematch.
But it's so close though. Like I'm not very confident in either one of those to be honest. Maybe I'm a little bit more confident in the Texas over Washington, but Bama Michigan seems like
See,
kind of a
I'm the
coin
I'm
flip.
the opposite, Shu.
Really?
Oh, I'm the
Okay.
opposite. I feel pretty confident in Bama over Michigan, but I feel like Texas Washington could be more of a coin flip.
That's fair, but we all know how you feel about Michigan, so I don't think that's
That is true,
surprising.
and I think I'm going to be proven right come this game. We'll see.
Well, you would have been proven right in 2021 when they got blown out by Georgia, and they also got beaten by TCU last year when they were like a
I,
9.5 point favorite. So Michigan's track record in these playoff games when they have played, a 2 game season is not looking good so far. Is this the year that
I will say
changes?
I do give Michigan the benefit of the doubt against that Georgia team because that Georgia team would have smoked anybody that they played that year. So,
That's true.
but
That's
yeah,
true. But yeah, Michigan's track record is so far has not been good. Third time's a charm, though. Maybe we'll see. But I don't know, man.
no.
Bama's there's something about Bama, dude. Like Bama when they play in Auburn in the Iron Bowl, it's like you can't win. Like it's like they like mess around with losing the game, and then they play Georgia in these SEC championships, and they turn into a juggernaut. And then you get them into the playoffs, sneaking into the playoff. Like that is scary. Like I honestly wouldn't be surprised if Bama wins the whole damn thing, man.
I think that's what I'm saying. I think Bama is like the most dangerous 4 seed of all time. Like ever since the Culture Bowl playoff has ever become a thing, like they are the most dangerous 4 seed ever.
And I feel like nobody's talking about them right now because of the controversy between Alabama and Florida State. But what about Texas? Like,
Texas, I
what
think,
if
has a
Texas
legit shot.
wins the whole thing? Texas can legitimately win this whole thing. Like, is anybody ready for that? I don't know if anybody's ready for Texas to win the national
I'm
championship. I don't
I'm
even
with you,
think
Shu.
Texas is ready for Texas to win the national championship.
I'm with you, Shub. I live in Austin, Texas right now. The city's buzzing. The city's buzzing. People here think they can win the Natty, and you know what? I'm inclined to agree with them. Um, Texas is a wagon this year. They beat this Alabama team. Granted, it was early season before Alabama really figured itself out, and that's what makes me so curious because we talked about just how much better this Alabama team has gotten. This Alabama team, after the Texas game, struggled against the 1-11 Bulls. So, if this Alabama team were to line up against Texas again, would it be different? This Alabama team is not the same Alabama team that it was to start the season, but this Texas team is also not the same team that it was 4 or 5 weeks ago. This Texas team is a wagon. They absolutely crushed Oklahoma State. Which, by the way, I was at that game. I was not having fun. I'll be dropping a vlog about that one soon because that's something we've talked about doing here on this channel. And yeah, man, I just wish it was more competitive. But man, Texas is a wagon. Texas is a wagon. 100%. They deserve to make the playoffs, and I'm really looking forward to seeing the slate, man. I truly think Texas has the Jimmies and Joes, man, and Sark's got some X's and O's. So I think this can definitely be a great matchup. We'll see, man. Can Texas go 2-0 against Bama and secure a natty, assuming Bama gets to the natty against them?
That would be crazy because think about that. That game was played in week 2. If you had told us back then at that time, yeah, Texas versus Alabama, this is going to be a national championship game. I would have said, no, man, like Bama's already got one loss. Bama's schedule is looking pretty tough. Like they're probably done. And they didn't really look that great against Texas in week 2. I mean, Texas thoroughly looked like the better team. I would have said I could see Texas in the playoff playing for the Natty after that week, but I don't know if I probably would have written off Bama.
And before we get too into the weeds or switch subjects, I do have to give a shout out because I did lose a bet to my friend Angel Quevedo, fellow person I went to pharmacy school with, and I told him after FSU wins, there's just no way at 13-0 FSU gets left out because he said Alabama would be the 4. I said, nah, man,
Oh
it's going to be
boy.
FSU. It's going to be FSU. And lo and behold, I'm at work today. I get a text from my old buddy, and he says, "Man, you better give me a shout out on your podcast because I was right. Here's your shout out, man. Uh, we'll see it. We'll see. But hey, he got it right, and I called him I called them Notre Dames after that. But hey, all fun and games. I will say this: I know FSU got screwed, but from top to bottom, 1, 2, 3, 4 seed, I don't think I don't think we've ever had a playoff where you could argue all of those teams could legitimately win the Natty. Like truly, I think all of those teams are capable of winning the Natty. Well, three of them, but and we know where I sit on the fourth one. I actually think
Yeah.
I actually think the one seed is the worst one in the group, but we'll
Now, see, that's
see.
very debatable. See that, so I was going to bring this up because I'm thinking off the top of my head. I think maybe 2014. I think maybe everybody thought everybody had a chance, and then 2017 was the year when Baker Mayfield won the Heisman.
Oh, that was like the one year OU like was competitive in the
It was
playoff,
like, yeah, it
and
was
they
the year
almost beat
that year
Georgia.
was it was Clemson was 1, OU was 2, and then you had Bama and Georgia were 3 and 4,
Hmm.
and then Bama and Georgia ended up playing for the Natty. The 3 and 4 ended up winning both those games.
This is refreshing though, man, because we're not used to seeing a playoff where all four teams you're like, man, these semis are going to be good.
I think
Usually
I
you're like,
felt that way
okay,
in that year, and then I think that's about it. There's been like 2 other years maybe where I
so
felt the semis were
2017,
going
a
to be
solid
competitive.
6, 7 seasons ago. I mean,
You're right.
few and
Yeah.
far between, man. Like, yeah,
Yeah. No, exactly. It has been few and far between. And I feel like the 14 playoff era, that's how it's going to be looked back upon. It's going to be like, yeah, remember how disproportionate the sport was at the top and during those years? Like, I hope it changes for the better in the future, but we'll see. But really quick, before we move on, because I do want to talk a little bit about the actual championship games before we move on to some other good stuff, transfer portal and coaching carousel. But the DraftKings has their odds out on their futures to win the Natty. So I was curious for your thoughts on this. So to win the Natty, it's Michigan plus 180, Alabama plus 200, Texas plus 260, and Washington plus 700. What do you think
it's
about that?
incredible that Michigan has the best odds.
They do.
That's the sports books trying to get some money, man.
Well, if
Um,
you're Mr. Zan here and you have Zan's mindset, then that would imply that there is hidden value on all 3 other teams.
I mean, if I could get some kind of prop bet that it'll be anyone but Michigan, I would hammer money on that. Like, I would hammer $1,000 on that.
Yeah, I probably would too, but I don't know. I'm not as bad. I'm not as down on Michigan as you are. Like I view
Okay,
Michigan
okay.
Bama more as a coin flip.
Legitimately, if legitimately, I think I might actually. You know what? I no, because I already withdrew my funds, or I'm trying to withdraw my funds from my sports account. But if I was in a state where I could routinely sports bet without having to jump through a million hoops, I would definitely put a few $100s on Bama to beat Michigan.
Woo. And right now, I'm
I
pretty
feel
sure.
pretty supremely confident in it.
All right, I love it. So I'm looking at it right now. Let's see. The actual game line is uh, what is it? Oh, Michigan minus 1.5. So you would get Texas, or sorry, Alabama money line at even plus 100.
I love it.
So there you go.
I'd make some money, free money, man.
Yeah, and they also have the hypotheticals here. So they also have like potential natty matchups. They have those lines out too. So they would have Michigan as a 3 point favorite over Texas, and they would have Michigan as a 6.5 point favorite over Washington. So just interesting stuff there.
I think all three of those teams would beat Michigan, but that's just me.
Man, I don't know about that, but
I think
I love
Michigan
it.
is the fifth best team in the country.
Man, for a
The
minute
only
there,
team, the only
for,
team I think Michigan would beat is FSU. Out of the teams that were jockeying to get in, and I texted you. I said, "Watch, FSU is gonna freaking play Michigan in the first round. Michigan's gonna get a free pass to the Natty."
I was just about to say, it was looking there for a good hot minute that it was going to be Michigan versus FSU in the semis, and we were going to have Michigan in the Natty, and Zan was going to be like, it would take literally them getting to the Natty for him to be like, see, they got exposed. They finally got exposed. That would have been
I'm
funny.
telling you, man. So this is like you with USC a year or two ago. Like
Yeah.
I'm on this hill, man. Like I will be on this hill until my corpse is disintegrated into the freaking hill itself. But I'm telling you, I'm right. Bama's gonna prove me right.
You know what? I think you're starting to convince me, man. I think you're starting to convince me, but we'll see. I just thought about this in my head. I'm like, man, we said the same things. People said the same thing about Michigan in 2021, and they thought the same thing about them last year in 22, and they lost both of those games to, well, one was to an inferior, what we thought was an inferior team, and then they lost to a Georgia team that was just, insane. So,
Michigan fans are gonna hate me if they even see or get deep into the pod. But I mean, I gotta tell you, man. I said Kentucky all season is the snake oil state. I think Michigan is the snake oil team. Like you got the snake oil state, and then you've got the manufacturer Jim Harbaugh. So
how badly would this year's Michigan, get beat by last year's Georgia team? What do you think?
oh, pretty bad. And I don't. I would say by about 24 points. I'd say 24 points. 21, 24 points. And that's only because I don't think they'd be able to score on Georgia. I think their defense would get a lot of stops on Georgia, but ultimately it'd be a war of attrition, and then Georgia would just eventually pile it on, and then the final score would be like, I don't know, like 34-7 or 34-10, something like that.
All right. Fair enough. I had to ask the question. All right. I think it's time to move on. I think we've talked enough about the playoff. I think you'll hear a lot of talk about the playoff, but I feel like
Lay the money, Bama
yeah,
over Michigan.
Bama money line. Let's go. All right. So really quick, I think just going through these championship games, like, Bama 27, Georgia 24. This was probably the best championship game. Well, I don't know. The Pac-12 championship game was debatable. That was a close second. Georgia had a 29-game win streak. 29-game win streak snapped. They had an SEC win streak, everything, like a bunch of stuff just snapped. A chance at a three-peat snapped. We both had financial investment in Georgia three-peating as well, which
That's significant. Yeah.
yeah, that was a tough pill to swallow, especially for you. So I don't know, man. We were both saying, like, I feel like a lot of people were very confident. Oh yeah, Georgia's gonna win. And I sat there on last week's pod and I was like, you guys remember 2021? We were in pretty much the same circumstances. Everyone was saying, "Oh, Bama struggled against a bad Auburn team in the Iron Bowl. Georgia's looking like a beast. SEC championship game, Georgia's going to beat them." And then Alabama wins. It happened again. They did it to him again. Listen, Georgia got him in the Natty in 22 or in 21, but in SEC championship games, Alabama just owns Georgia. Think about it. Georgia's only SEC championship came against LSU last year. Every time Kirby Smart and Georgia have gone against Alabama in an SEC championship game, Bama has beaten them. I don't know what it is, man, but
Saban, man.
Saban and that SEC championship trophy are like magnets, man. They just attract, and even
That's
Georgia can't
crazy.
stop them. I know Georgia played a little bit banged up here. I know Brock Bowers wasn't healthy. McConkey came out. Mims was out for this game. Like Georgia definitely wasn't playing at 100%, but you know, this was pretty evenly matched. I'd say even if Georgia was 100%, I don't really think like Georgia wouldn't have ran away with this
I mean,
at all.
Georgia's a great team, man. I mean, they're one of the best four. Like I get it. Kirby's like put it in one of the best four. You are one of the best four, but we play the games for a reason. Win the game. Sorry, Kirby. Schedule Texas in your non-con if you want more benefit of the doubt.
Yeah. Well, they had OU scheduled in the non-con, and then the SEC made them take it away. So give them credit there. How about this? Does Jalen Milroe deserve to be a Heisman finalist?
Uh, Maybe like number 5 or 4. Number 4 or 5. I wouldn't put him in the top 3. So yes, he deserves, I think, a ticket because they usually invite 5 people. He deserves a
It's
ticket to
usually
New
3 to
York.
5, I think.
If they expanded it out to 4 or 5, I'd say give him a ticket to New York. But if they're only inviting 3, no, not at all. Jalen Milroe has improved drastically, and Alabama owes a lot of their success to Jalen Milroe, 100%. But come on, Milroe Miracle is called the Milroe Miracle for a reason. I applaud him for his improvement. I applaud him for his athleticism, and I think he's going to be great next year. Actually, I think Milroe's only going to get better. Um, but as it stands this year, the field is just too competitive. You have Michael Penix, Bo Nix, Jaden Daniels. I mean, those guys all had crazy, crazy seasons and played at a high level all season. They didn't have to work their way up. So Jalen Milroe, top five, not top three.
I think you're 100% on the money. I would say top five, but not top three. And then it's pretty much up to the Heisman trust ceremony, however they do it, whether or not they're going to actually invite him to be in New York in person. But I think everyone pretty much agrees. It's Jane Daniels, Bo Nix, Michael Penix is like the three finalists. And then if Milroe's there, great. But I think we all know he's not going to actually win it. But you can make an argument that he deserves to be a finalist. I think that he definitely deserves that. When was the last
Yeah,
time
I
a
mean,
player
if
like
they
that?
expanded out to four, I wouldn't have an issue with him getting an invite, but we know damn well he wouldn't win.
When's the last time we saw a player improve as drastically as he has like throughout a singular season? I'm trying to think off the top of my head.
I know it's happened, but I'd have to actually like really sit there and do some research about it. But here in recent memory, um,
We'll say this:
no, it's
a
not common
player improved on a team that actually makes the playoff and has a legitimate chance to win the national championship. Like off the top of my head, I
because
can't
of his
remember.
improvement.
Right,
I yeah, I don't know. It may not have ever happened in the playoff era, honestly.
and that man got freaking benched against South Florida in September. Can you believe that for Tyler Buckner? Good gravy. Can you just? I'm just saying, man. Everybody forgets about that South Florida game, but I will
And
never forget that game. I know I
hey,
bring it up every pod, but
and you know what? Hey, while we're at it, I'm gonna toss my homer hat in here. If we're gonna have Milroe in there at the four spot, screw it. Invite five. Invite Ollie Gordon because you brought this up. You brought up how Milroe's improvement is what segued them to what they are now. Ollie Gordon's improvement, or I guess actual like usage by the coaching staff, is what segued Oklahoma State from being like a 4-8 team into being in the conference championship game. So I'd say invite Ollie to New York. I know he's not going to win it, but invite him. Invite Milroe, invite Ollie, give them customary hotels, let them, admire the winners, and yeah, and sit there in New York.
hey, expand the playoff. Hashtag expand the Heisman. Expand the Heisman finalists.
Expand the Heisman.
Um,
Those are my candidates right there for sure. Four and five, Milroe and Gordon.
how about the ACC championship? We already kind of dived into this one. Florida State 16, Louisville 6. Boy, this was ugly. This was an ugly championship
It was
game.
kind of hard to
It
watch.
was very hard to watch.
I thought FSU choked. I thought they were going to lose this game. Um, the punt is what I'm referencing here. I don't know if you saw that, but
Oh
like
yeah.
as soon as their punter got tackled and what gave the ball to Louisville at the 10-15 yard line, I was thinking this is over. Like this is just the way the game was going. Louisville gets a touchdown there, no one could score. If Louisville gets a touchdown there, it's very well could be the game. And of course, FSU, credit to their defense, man. Their defense is amazing. Intercepts the ball, saves their season. Man, I can't say enough great things. I do think if FSU made it at the 4 seed, I don't think Michigan would trounce them. I think Michigan would beat them, but I think that would be a low scoring rock fight. I do. I think it would be like a 17-7 or 17-10 kind of game. I really do.
No, I completely agree. I feel like everyone's on social media saying like, "Oh yeah, FSU would get blown out in the semifinals. Like we wouldn't want to see that. This team would get trounced." Like no, that
I think
defense
against Washington or
alone,
Texas they would, but not against
but they wouldn't
Michigan.
get trounced. That defense alone would keep them in the game. Yeah, the offense wouldn't be able to put up many points, but like the defense alone could have kept it from becoming like an annihilation. Yeah, probably wouldn't have been a pleasant game to watch, but I think FSU could hold Texas or Washington or Alabama or Michigan to under 35 points, under 30 points, under 28 points, I'd say for Michigan.
I think
Definitely.
yeah, definitely under 20 for Michigan. I'm inclined to say 17 or less for Michigan. Washington probably 28 or less. Texas probably 30 or less. Bama probably same 30 or less. So yeah,
I mean, Jack Plummer looked like he was seeing ghosts out there, man. And FSU defensive line was just completely lights out. Like did you see that one play?
Jared Verse is so good.
Yes, that one play, I think it was like the final play, one of the final plays of the game when Louisville was trying to score. down 2 scores with like a minute left in the game, and Jared Verse like basically like went basically like drove the left tackle into Plummer and like sacked Plummer and the offensive tackle at the same time. Like a complete beast, dude. Like that
Yeah,
was
that's a
insane.
first round draft pick right there. That's a top 10 pick right there.
He straight up blew the left tackle off the line into Plummer and sacked 2 dudes at the same time. Like he used the left tackle
Yeah,
to sack
that's
Plummer. I
power,
thought that
man.
was insane. Yes, that's just pure like insane power. That dude's going to be a top 10 pick in the draft. Like that's going to be all over his highlight reels. I'm telling you. So if you don't know
Mhm.
what play I'm thinking about, like just know when the draft comes along that they're going to show that every time. That was
100%.
insane.
Whenever he gets picked, that's going to be on his little reel.
Yeah. But yeah, man, I feel bad. FSU's defense definitely college football playoff worthy. We can at least say that. We'll at least say that. Pac-12 championship, Washington versus Oregon. Well, I'm gonna eat crow.
It's gonna
I
be a good
was
game.
doubting Washington. I've been down Washington for the last like month, dude. I've been
I was down
saying
Washington
this.
too.
Yeah. I
I'm 100% with you. We both have to eat crow. You and I both said Oregon's going to cover the 9.5.
Yep. And
We're both eating
Washington
crow.
just said no. No. Yeah. Remember how you guys were saying that something didn't look right? Remember we were saying Penix just looks off? Like they're just not the same team that they were back in September. Their numbers have slowly fallen off a cliff, slow and steady decline in October and November. Like everything, it was all there. Like all the data, like there was plenty of evidence to suggest Washington was declining. Hard data. Just even watching them, they did not look good. They were getting worse and worse every week, still somehow winning these games. And I don't know what happened. I don't know what they put in the water, if they ate something, if they just said, oh, yeah, remember, we're good. And it was September Washington all over again. And the physicality matched Oregon. That's pretty much like was the difference to me. I did not expect that at all. Like
Mhm.
Washington showed up to play, man, and that was an entertaining game.
I think Washington saw the spread. They said 9.5, huh? 9.5. Even though we beat them, they probably felt disrespected. In fact, I know they felt disrespected, and they took it personally, man. They went out there, they played much better than I thought they would. I thought, we were kind of concerned. I think our biggest concern was Penix just didn't seem healthy the last few games, and we thought that, the way Oregon had looked, it just good timing for this matchup for Washington. But man, Kalen DeBoer, man, that dude is a winner. What is he like 103-11 as a head coach, something crazy like that? That's not made up, by the way. Go Google it
No,
for people who are listening. Like that is video game dynasty numbers where you're, Texas State getting all the 5 stars because in NCAA dynasty, like for some reason the big programs don't recruit the 5 stars and Navy and Army get all of them. But like it's crazy, man. But this game, I do want to say one thing. I thought Washington was going to choke this game away at the end. Washington gets what seems like the dagger touchdown to go up 10 points. And then what, 2 plays later, Oregon scores because of shoddy defense by Washington. Then on that long touchdown where the dude broke all those tackles and scored, you can just look at the Washington DBs and they're just jogging like, oh, we won the game, whatever. And then like Oregon scores and they're like, oh crap. Oh my God. It's a game now. Holy crap. Like oh my goodness, man. And that's irritating me watching their DBs just kind of dogging. But I don't know, man.
beating Oregon twice is hella impressive. I think this Oregon team,
Oregon's a great team.
Oregon is, listen, I think like they didn't make the playoff. They lost to Washington twice. There was no controversy surrounding them this year. They didn't win the Pac 12, not making the playoff. But I feel like this Oregon team is going to get lost in history because, like, I feel like this Oregon team is like going to be one of the best 2 loss teams that didn't come close to the playoff, didn't win a conference championship that we've seen. I just feel like over time we're just going to forget about it. But like this Oregon team was really good. They just lost to Washington twice. They couldn't beat Washington. You know, uh, yeah. I mean, think about Oregon. I was thinking about this in my head. Like you went from having a great season, you're a juggernaut, you're beating up on teams, you're dominating. You have everyone, including us, thinking you are a bona fide top 4 team, top 3 team. You had a close loss to Washington that you're like, well, you get to avenge that in the Pac-12 championship game. You go into that game thinking you are a 9.5-point favorite. You get to avenge that loss, go to the playoff, win the Pac-12, and none of that. You just get none of that. And on top of that, your Liberty, your matchup in the New Year's Six Bowl is against Liberty. It's like, man, you don't even get like a
That's going
good
to be a
opponent.
massacre, man.
Like you didn't even get matched up against Georgia. I feel like even though you're gonna get a free win in the New Year's Six Bowl, it's not gonna get have the same satisfaction or vindication than if you would have got to play like Florida State or Georgia in your New Year's Six Bowl. It's kind of a shame, man. It's kind of a shame. But they did it to themselves. They couldn't beat Washington twice. Like you lost to the same team twice. So it's yeah. We'll see how they are next year without Bo Nix. But anyhow, Big 12 championship, Texas 49, Oklahoma State 21. You, as the man who attended this game in person and a resident Oklahoma State alum, what are your thoughts?
There's not much to say about this. Quinn Ewers almost broke the dang. So Quinn Ewers did break the Big 12 championship passing yards record, and I believe the team total for Texas team yards, they broke the Big 12 championship offensive yards record, which was previously held by Oklahoma. And they basically did this in the first half from just throwing a bunch of check down. Yeah, like, and Oklahoma
Quinn
State
Ewers
never
was a check
adjusted.
down merchant. I
Yeah,
mean,
because even in the second half, they were doing the same thing, and Oklahoma State just never adjusted. They never got beat deep. They just kept getting beat on 2 yard passes. And I was seeing all these different graphics saying, "Look at your stats. Oh man, Quinn Ewers exploded against Oklahoma State." I'm like, bro, Arch Manning could have been in there making those throws. I could have been in there making those throws. 2 yarders, I can do that. Like, come on now. And then let my 5 stars go like outrun the threes. I mean, that's all they were doing. But no, this was just a pure talent discrepancy, like on full display, man. Like, just Texas finally took that recruiting value that they've always had the advantage in, and they're finally actually looking like what they should have for like the last 10 years with the level of talent they've had relative to their opponents. This is what they should have looked like, 100%. And yeah, I mean, credit to Texas. Like, I'm not even mad. I didn't expect to win the game going as an Oklahoma State fan. I was hoping it could be more competitive, and maybe if we get lucky, we could snipe them, because that's just been in our history. But Texas was the team of destiny this year. They look amazing, and I actually think they are back finally. The days of the meme are over.
yep.
Just like when ESPN had to retire the Mark Sanchez butt fumble, we have to retire the Texas is back memes. And I think they're actually back. So congrats to Texas. I think they have a legit shot to win the Natty this year.
Agreed. And I'll take a minor victory lap for ourselves. I think, it was very easy to go into oh, well, Texas, every year, you always say the same thing. They're always favored to win the conference. They can't win the Big 12. Listen, that's such the easy, the easy thing to say that everybody says all the time, every time you say, oh, Texas might be good. And we were saying they had a bunch of close losses last year. They were way better than their record suggests. They just really kind of choked in fourth quarter situations last year. And we were like, if that literally just turns around this year, they win all those close games, they're going to be an elite team that can win the Big 12 and potentially go to the playoff. And what happened? They won the Big 12 and they're going to the playoff. And I think you and I called it. You and I both picked Texas to win the Big 12. And
I had money. I had money on that. I won money
me
on
too.
Texas in the Big 12. So yeah.
Me too. And, we were saying in win totals, we were like, listen, this Texas team is far and away. Just look at this roster. Like, this is a good freaking roster. This is a college football playoff, top 4 elite caliber roster. They just need to win these close games. And look what they did. They won all the close games. They didn't choke them. It's not something that just sticks with you, especially with a good team like that. And it didn't stick with them, and they won the Big 12. So a minor
I
victory
feel like
lap
it's
for
something
us.
about Yormark being in attendance, man. Texas' biggest wins of the year were both with Yormark in attendance. I think Yormark just motivates them. If Yormark's around, they're like, man, let's let's stick it to him.
Listen, on one hand, it would have been nice if Oklahoma State won, but on the other hand, Texas also just won the Big 12 $6 million that Texas never gets to see by making the CFP. So their
Thank you,
CFP money is
Texas.
going all to the Big 12. So Yormark, even though he sat there and they booed the absolute living hell out of him, man, on the
And
stage.
the
I was
SEC
watching
chanted
that.
him too.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, he did look a little rattled, but I think in the back of the mind, he's like, well, hey, listen, joke's on you. Like you just won $6 million from my conference that we get. So
And if they make the Natty, that's even more money.
yeah, exactly. So I mean,
The pick's
it
gonna be even better. So yeah.
it's a little give and take there. But yeah, that was kind of funny to watch. Not gonna lie. Even though I think Yormark's a phenomenal commissioner, that was definitely that was a little entertaining. Lastly, Big Ten championship, Michigan versus Iowa. I mean, listen, all I gotta say
I didn't
is
watch a second of this game.
thank God that the Big Ten is getting rid of the stupid East and West for good now. Like this is the last year, I think, hopefully, ideally, that we will have just these terrible Big Ten championship games.
Yes,
Um,
100%, especially with the new teams coming in, 100%. The Big Ten championship games are actually going to be good from here on out.
yes,
But I didn't watch a second of this game because I knew the outcome. We know how bad
yes.
Iowa is. We know how good Michigan's defense is. You take the worst offense in the history of mankind and put them up against like one of the best defenses in college football, and of course, they scored 0 points. They scored 0 points. Do you know what the Iowa team total was going into this game? It was like 6.5. And
Oh,
and there were other podcasts that I listen to occasionally, and they were saying they were thinking about doing an alt spread, an alt team total of 2.5 for Iowa. And the
yeah,
thing is, if they would have done that, it would have hit.
yep. I can't bet
It's
team totals in
nuts.
Arizona, but I would have done the same thing. We were saying,
But
yeah, shutout is completely on the table. Like, in
I
fact,
didn't
I'd say
watch a
it's more
second of this game.
likely. I was thinking to myself, it's more likely Iowa gets shut out than Iowa actually gets an offensive touchdown. That's what
And
I was
this
thinking in
is
my
why
head.
I thought you taking the Iowa cover was ballsy because I understand your logic behind it. But I was thinking Iowa's probably not going to score a damn point, man. They might get a field goal, but the only way that they're covering is if they get a scoop and score or something crazy. Yeah, man.
Yeah, I mean, you can
Thank
get those
God the Big
against
Ten
like
West is no more.
incompetent Big Ten West teams, but when you go against Michigan, you're not getting all those lucky, crazy turnovers like that. But yeah, man, Iowa did fumble the ball 3 different times, and 2 of them were in Michigan territory or were deep in their own territory. So Michigan got it with plus territory. So I think if you were to run back the numbers, you'd say Michigan probably would not have covered. They shouldn't have won by 26. They should have only won maybe by like 20 if Iowa just didn't fumble the ball 3 times. But Iowa's gonna Iowa. So I paid the price. Hey, listen, I took that risk. I took that risk and I paid the price. So I deserve it for taking Iowa on a spread.
This is the second week in a row you deserve your L, man. Like
Yes.
and it's all
Yes.
been related to Iowa every time. You want to be the one guy that believes in Iowa, and it keeps biting you.
Well, I didn't believe in Iowa. Last week I took Nebraska. I took Nebraska money line because I thought, oh, Iowa's got nothing to play for. But little did I know, hey, Nebraska versus like an incompetent Big Ten West opponent, their Iowa voodoo works. But then Iowa versus
No, I was
Michigan, it doesn't work.
I was referring to your Iowa over bet, the over the win total.
Oh, that was yeah, that was I overthought that one big time because Illinois had
I'm
Paddock
like,
in
you
at
took an
quarterback.
Iowa over?
Well, it wasn't an Iowa over. It was the game over, the over in the whole
Yeah, it
game.
was a team total over, but it's an Iowa game.
No, it wasn't a team total over. It was just Iowa, Illinois over 31.5 because I thought Illinois is going to hold up their end of
No,
the
I
bargain with
know.
Paddock.
It was a game total over, yeah.
So, yeah,
It was a game total. And like Iowa game
right.
total overs are basically guaranteed to be unders every time.
Yes. I would not have taken a team total for sure. Game over, yes, but anyways, yeah. Hey, I don't think there's anything to take away from this game, man. This is like going to be the most irrelevant like Big Ten championship game of all time. Like,
Yeah, let's just move on.
yeah,
I literally didn't watch a second of it. I didn't even watch the highlights. I have zero interest in that game because
yeah.
like the outcome was written in the stone before it even started. So
One last step before we move on. The Big Ten West never won a single Big Ten championship game. They
big
were like 0
shocker.
and 10. Yeah, shocker. So that's just one that'll go into the history books. The Big Ten West never won a single Big Ten championship game. All right. The group of five. So little G5 rundown here. Liberty, they finished 13-0, and there's some noise with Liberty right now. The committee put them ahead of SMU in the rankings, and Liberty, by virtue of Tulane losing to SMU in the AAC title game, puts the Flames in a New Year's Six Bowl, and they will be playing Oregon in the Fiesta Bowl, as we mentioned earlier. Hey, congrats to Liberty, man. Jamie Chadwell's first season as head coach there. He moved there from Coastal and he left for Liberty. You thought, hey, maybe that's kind of like a lateral move. Well, he went to Liberty and he went to a place where he knew he can dominate the CUSA because the CUSA is like the worst conglomerate of FBS teams combined, and you have a school like Liberty with private school money, a ton of good resources. They're on the up and up. They have a huge enrollment. It's a very underrated school with a lot of potential that's still yet to be realized. And he just went there to dominate the league, probably raise his coaching stock. And man, he's doing that in year one. In year one, 13-0. And now they're playing in New Year's Six Bowl. And they're going to be like 35-point underdogs. But hey, who cares? You're still there.
Yeah, it's crazy, man. Because I think SMU is the best team in the G5. Granted, they're joining the ACC next year, but in this year's standings, I think they're the best G5 team. And I mean, a credit to SMU for beating Tulane, the Fighting Willie Fritzes, without their starting quarterback. So yeah, man, great job. A lot of good G5, man. A lot of good G5, and I love seeing James Madison make a bowl game. I love that. Fantastic. I hate that they're playing Air Force. Isn't that what they're playing?
Yes.
I wish they would have given them like a more. Air Force isn't bad, but I wish they would have given them like a Power 5 opponent. Just
Yeah.
like, because you got to give them something. You won't let them play in the conference championship. At least let them like try to prove their mettle against a Power 5 opponent. It doesn't have to be an FSU or anything, but at least give them someone respectable.
Completely agreed. I was hoping for that too, but just the way that the bowl pairings work and all that, it's oh well. But hey man, shout out to Liberty. I think it's definitely a school on the rise, and they're just going to completely dominate Conference USA for the near future. Like they will dominate that league. I'd be shocked if they don't win it every single year. We talked about SMU. They beat Tulane to win the AAC without Preston Stone. I feel like an idiot for picking Tulane now. Because we originally wanted to pick SMU.
I don't feel like an idiot for that pick. Look, I thought they'd be much different without Preston Stone. Period. And Tulane was looking good. We know Tulane is well coached, but I'm going to give myself a little bit of an out here because I mean Willie Fritz was announced as the head coach at Houston. I feel like the players probably knew he had a foot out the door. Was Willie Fritz like? Was his heart in this? Because like either way, win or lose, like he's got a better job. He's got everything on the table. He's making more money. I mean, I feel like that probably factored in as well. So, but yeah, man, I think Tulane's days of relevance are over. But hey, it was a hell of a run. It was a hell of a run. But hey, I lost my train of thought. Oh yeah. Boise State. This is like really impressive to me. Two teams who kind of like fired their head coaches in like the craziest, like Northwestern, right before the season, basically makes a bowl game. Then you have Boise State who fires their head coach mid-season, and then who would have thought? Maybe it was their head coach. That was the reason they were sucking, because they went on this tear and won the dang Mountain West. That's crazy, man.
Addition by subtraction. Subtraction. We'll get into
crazy,
Spencer Danielson. He was just named the full-time head coach too. We'll get into that here in a second. But yeah, man, congrats to Boise State, definitely. How about Troy? Troy, second straight year for Troy, back-to-back Sun Belt titles. They finished 11-2, so they were 11-2 last year. They were 11-2 this year. Back-to-back Sun Belt championships. Oh, and by the way, the last 2 years have been the only 2 years that their head coach, John Sumrall, has been the head coach. So John Sumrall's 2-year tenure.
How is he not being poached?
I was just about to say that. He went 11-2 in his first year, won the Sun Belt. He goes 11-2 and wins the Sun Belt in his second year. I mean, and it's not like Troy, and they're doing it with defense and physicality. It's not like they have like the really good quarterback carrying the team. It's defense, physicality, that type of football. At the G5 level, man, his name should definitely be in the hat, man. His name should definitely be in the hat.
I mean, look, if he's not picked up this cycle, if he has another year like that, I promise you, next cycle, he's going somewhere.
He's got to be. He's got to be. Right now, the only Power 5 job opening currently is Duke. So, I don't know. Maybe if you're Duke.
If I was Duke, I would do it. That'd be a great hire for Duke. You lose Elko, and you just bring in another great coach. If you want to stay relevant, that'd be a perfect hire for the Blue Devils.
That's about as good of a replacement as you can get. So, lastly, Miami of Ohio. They avenged their regular season loss to Toledo, and they win the one that matters. They win the MAC championship. shout out to Miami of Ohio, man. 11-2 season for the Red Hawks, and they are MAC champions. So good for them, man. All right. How about some other intriguing bowl games? I thought I'd just bring this up really quick because we talked a lot about the playoff, but you know, at least for this year and starting next year, like if you already thought the bowl games don't really matter anymore and you don't care about the rest of the bowl games, if you feel about that like now, next year you're not even going to care one bit because next year it's going to be all about the 12 team playoff, and I don't think who's going to care about those bowl games. But this year, at least, we still do have some high profile matchups in the non playoff games. You got Georgia versus Florida State in the Orange Bowl. This could have easily been a CFP matchup right here, but still, Florida State versus Georgia. I mean, that's going to be a hell of a game, even without the best players playing. Missouri versus Ohio State in the Cotton Bowl, I think, is like very intriguing to
That's
me.
going to be a good game.
I'm
I
very
feel like
interested to
Missouri
see
can win
that.
that game. I think Missouri can win that game.
Oh, I totally agree. And I think Missouri is going to be extremely motivated to win this game. Like, if anything, I feel like the team most motivated to win the New Year's Six is Missouri, playing Ohio State in that position. And then you got the Peach Bowl, number 11 Ole Miss versus number 10 Penn State. Honestly, man, I don't really feel that fired up about this one, but all I'm going to say is this. Next year in the expanded playoff, these two teams make the playoff. So if we have the 12-team field this year, these would have been the two final at-large spots for these two teams. And all I got to say is, listen, the 12-team playoff, I think it'll be good, especially for this year. The 12-team playoff would have been good. But, like, I feel like this is the drawback to the 12-team playoff is like this, because I'm looking at Penn State and Ole Miss, and I'm like, we already saw Penn State. They had their shot against Ohio State. We already saw them lose to Michigan. Like, we already know what Penn State is. And then they would rematch against
I
Ohio State.
think
They would rematch against Ohio State. It's like, we already saw that game. We don't need to see it again. We know what Penn State is. Ole Miss.
I
We know what Ole Miss is.
legitimately I think 12 is too many. I think 8 is perfect. I think 8 is perfect. Give me the uh, highest highest rated 4 conference champions. They get a home field in the first round, and then the other 4 are at larges. And then you give one the highest rated conference championship for G5, highest rated conference champion for G5. Give them a spot just to be fair, and then boom, 3 at larges. Problem solved.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. The 18 playoff would have been great for this year, but I saw the graphic and it was like, if Ole Miss was number 11, Ole Miss would match up against Georgia, who's number 6. And it's like, we already saw that game in the regular season, and Georgia beat the absolute you know what out of Ole Miss by like 4 touchdowns. Do we need to see that game again? Do we need to see that
Yes.
game again? And then Penn State's number 10. Who's number 7? It's Ohio State. Guess what? We already saw Ohio State beat Penn State earlier in the season. Do we need
And
to
they would
see
do it
that again?
again.
You're just going to see what we already know is going to happen again. This is the one drawback to the playoff, man. It's my one quarrel with it is like, we don't need to see these games again, man. We already saw them happen. We know what these are. Anyways, I'll move on. Fiesta Bowl, we already talked about this. Oregon versus Liberty. And Bo Nix. Bo Nix said he's playing, by the way. He said he's
Yeah,
going to
that's
play in this
that's going to
game.
be a massacre.
Liberty plus
This,
38.
this legit might be like a 40-45-10 game. Like it might be worse than that, honestly. It just depends on when Oregon decides to, stop running up the score.
Oh man, are the spreads out yet? Do you want to guess what the spread is? Have you seen it yet?
I haven't seen it yet. I'm gonna
I'm trying to
guess.
find it. I
I'm
don't
gonna
think it's out yet.
guess.
Oh, it is out. Oh my god.
Okay, let me guess. 27 and a half, Oregon.
So I saw on DraftKings it just came out. Oregon is only favored by 16 and a half.
They must think that Oregon's
Hold on a
gonna
minute.
like have some people
Pause.
opt out or something.
Can we pause this real quick? I think I got to go put some money on something. 16 and a half, that's it? Dude. Listen, man, I love Liberty. It's a great
I was
story,
thinking
but
like anywhere from 24 to 27 was gonna be it. Like
do they know that Bo Nix is playing? Like,
maybe not. You might want to drop some money on it right now.
I think I will. I thought this was gonna be like, yeah, I'm with you. I was with you. I was like, this is like 4 touchdown territory. Like in my mind, I'm thinking Oregon's probably gonna win by like 5 touchdowns if they show up, you
And
know.
Oregon runs it up. Oregon doesn't. They're not merciful. Like Oregon runs
Yeah.
it up.
And Bo Nix is playing. Like, I can't reiterate that. Bo Nix is playing in this game. All
Did,
right.
did did Troy Franklin opt out or something? Like, what's going on here?
I don't know. I
Did
don't
their whole
know.
offense opt out? Like, what's going on? Outside
Yeah,
of Bo Nix, is the whole team opting out?
I'm queuing that one up, that Oregon spread. Yeah, I'll say that. All right. Are you ready to move on to, well, no, let's really quick. One non-New Year's Six matchup, I think. I don't know if you feel free to name one bowl game just off the top of your head that you've looked at that you're really interested in seeing, but I looked at them really quick, and the non-New Year's Six bowl that I am very most interested in seeing is the Alamo Bowl, which is going to be Arizona versus Oklahoma.
I agree. That's mine as well.
Like that's
I
a New
think that's going
Year's
to
Six
be.
caliber
I
bowl.
think that's legitimately two teams, and I think that's going to be a hard fought game. Either team can win that game. I think it's going to be a hell of a game. A lot of people don't realize how good Arizona is. I think Arizona can beat OU. I think we very well might see it. People, this is going
Absolutely.
to be Fafita's coming out party. I think if Noah Fafita goes off in this game against OU and beats them, Arizona, watch out, because you know who's going to come calling? The big boys. They're going to be dropping bags at Noah Fafita, saying, "Hey, jump in that portal real quick and come play for us." So be careful, Arizona. Make a statement, but don't make too big of a statement.
Yeah, I mean, man, Noah Fafita, they have it all lined up for next year, though. Like that's going to be a good team. I'd be hard pressed to see if he would actually leave. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'll first glance, like I'm looking through all these bowl games that are the non New Year's Six games, and this one is just pulling me. Like it is easily for me the most intriguing one, like the most fun bowl game that I'm looking forward to seeing out of all these on here. So let's shift gears here, man. Let's talk about the transfer portal. So it is early. I mean, it is only December 3rd, but there already are some big names in the portal. The majority of them are quarterbacks, of course, because, quarterback is the most important position. And by nature of that, most quarterbacks hit the portal. There's a lot of shuffling of the deck. So, really quick, let's go through some of these high profile transfer portal players. Again, it's December 3rd. So maybe there are some big names that are still to be put in the portal. But as of now, this is the list. And I rank these in the same order that 24/7 ranked these on their transfer portal page. So the number one quarterback in the portal is Dante Moore. Now, all I got to say is, listen, we said this only 2 weeks ago. We were like, man, if Chip Kelly's leaving, like Dante Moore, like his you know what is the first one to put his name in the portal. And sure enough, like that man literally put his
We
name in
were
the
right.
portal as soon as it opened. Like listen, man, I all I gotta
Legitimately,
say is
I have three spots for him.
go ahead.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say. All I was gonna say is like, from what we've heard from him so far, man. Like, I just don't know if I'm not gonna write him off yet because right now it looks like he might be a bust. At least his first year did not look great at all. We're not gonna say he's a bust just yet, but it's sort of trending that way. Stock's definitely down. But like, man, if you're just going places, surely because you're demanding playing time or you're demanding NIL money, like I just don't know if this is gonna. I don't know if his career is set up to go super well if he continues on this same path of demands as a freshman quarterback, soon to be sophomore quarterback. Let's put it that way. So I'm interested to see which teams pick him up with that baggage.
I think he's going to go to one of three teams. I think here are my three teams. I feel like there's an 80% chance I'll be right about this. Oregon, no more Bo Nix. Bring in some competition for Ty Thompson and see where it goes from there. He was already committed to Oregon at one point in time,
Yep.
and he's certainly going to be a candidate there. My other team, Michigan State, they need to interesting fact about Michigan State. All their quarterbacks are in the portal, man. They don't. All the Michigan State's quarterbacks are in the portal.
Lead
So
singer of
they
BTS is in the portal too.
He is. They're all up literally number 1, 2, and 3 on the Michigan State depth chart portal. So if Dante Moore wants to go somewhere with a good coach, not really have to fight for it, and it looks like as of right now, Aiden Childs has not entered the portal. That's the place to go. Michigan State money to offer Dante Moore to go there. on the radar for them. And my third spot is Florida State. We saw
Ooh,
what they have behind Jordan Travis. And look, those guys could develop. A lot of them are very young, but I think Florida State really wants to get a guy with a high ceiling. And if they can get Dante Moore on the right path, I mean, he was a 5-star, highly rated guy for a reason. Could be their next Jordan Travis if they can develop him properly. So I think Dante Moore will end up at one of those 3 schools.
that's interesting. Yeah. I mean, Florida State did seem like they were dead set on having Tate Rodemaker as the heir apparent to Jordan Travis, but I could definitely see that being a legitimate competition if you have Tate Rodemaker versus Dante Moore, and maybe have, Dante Moore as Tate Rodemaker insurance. That would be interesting. Michigan State definitely makes sense because, I mean, Dante Moore's from the Detroit area. It's where he grew up. And then, so you could see him, maybe he came out to LA, came out to the West Coast, didn't like it. Maybe he wants to go home. And then, we see that happen a lot. And then, I mean, Oregon, obviously, because he was already committed there and they need a quarterback now. So those all make very good sense to me. And yeah, man, I'd actually, if I had to bet right now, I'd say, yeah, I'd say most likely he does end up one of those 3 schools. I think that's a good list. And we'll see, if Chip Kelly is a pretty good coach, but we'll see if maybe just new change of scenery can turn his career around. But not off to the greatest
For
start.
sure.
Cam Ward, now in terms of just ready to go, like this is going to help win games for you next year, like talent in the portal, it is Cam Ward. I think he's number 1 on my list. Like this dude, listen, he's at Washington State. Not a lot of people know about him. A lot, well, I'll say this, not a lot of casual college football fans know about him. I think he goes to a big time blue blood program. His name is going to be well known next year.
Yeah. So here's where I'm predicting. Um, I think he is either going to end up, and Washington State fans would hate this, being their heir apparent to Michael Penix at Washington.
Ooh,
Because I have heard Washington has made him a pretty handsome offer.
I saw that too.
And my other team is Auburn. I heard Auburn wants him pretty dang bad, and they're willing to offer him a bag. And we know Auburn's got the pockets. So I think Cam Ward is going to end up at one of those 2 schools. I saw that Cam Ward had 8 offers of $1 million or more. Oregon is also in the mix for Cam Ward. So we'll see, man. Either way, Cam Ward is going to be a player next year. He'll be contending.
I mean, it makes sense. You got to pay up for quarterbacks in the portal. It's a premium position, so you're gonna have to pay. You're gonna have to pay those 6 figures for that, or 7 figures. I mean, yeah. Listen, as just a
And
pure
Miami.
fan.
Miami made an offer too,
Oh, of course. Oh,
and Ohio
that's
State.
Well, I'm not surprised Miami's in there. So I'll say this: if, as a purist college football fan, I think Cam Ward should go to Auburn. That just makes, when you said Auburn, like I can just totally picture Cam Ward at Auburn and him absolutely thriving with Hugh Freeze. Like that is something that I think could totally take off Auburn in year 2 with Hugh Freeze, is having Cam Ward there. Like he may not go there, but all I'm saying is that I could totally picture him in an Auburn uniform. Like as soon as you said that, I picture in an Auburn uniform, and I picture Auburn like having like a huge like takeoff year 2 with Freeze and Cam Ward there. Like I could totally see that.
I'm going to predict one. I'm going to predict my top 3 teams here, and I feel pretty confident it'll be one of these 3 teams: Auburn, Ohio State, or Washington.
If he goes to
I think it's
Washington,
going to be one of those
man,
3.
that would be oof. You can't
Money's
do
right.
that, man. I know money
Oh, come
talks,
on.
man, but
No
you
one
can't
cares
do
anymore.
that. Dude.
Nobody cares anymore.
Oh, that would be a blow to Wazoo right there.
There is no loyalty in college football anymore. Come on, Shube. I thought you knew this.
Especially since they extended the Apple Cup, so they're going to play each other next year. So like Washington State would play him if he went there next year. That would be savage. All right. Next up is Will Howard, Kansas State quarterback. Now this one makes a lot of sense just because Avery Johnson he's the future of Kansas State, and Avery Johnson looks like he's got a bright future there. But Will Howard is a pretty good quarterback in his own right. I mean, like it's honestly, if you're looking at this and you're like, wow, Will Howard left Kansas State, that should tell you something about Avery Johnson, what the future is looking like there if Will Howard left that situation. But hey, rumor is right now that there's some pretty good schools looking at him. And I saw a report
Mm-hmm.
today that apparently USC is meeting with him. That was literally today.
Yep.
So he's
So
he's gonna get some big time interest.
I saw USC, Auburn, Louisville, Washington, Kentucky, and Missouri have reached out. Missouri surprises me because Brady Cook's been solid.
Yeah, I was about to ask you that. Would you consider Will Howard a significant upgrade over Brady Cook? Not just a slight upgrade, like a
I actually think Brady
significant.
Cook's better. No, I actually think Brady Cook's better than Will Howard, and he's younger, and I think he can be better too with more playing time. Brady
Yeah,
Cook took a leap this year. He really did. I think Brady Cook is actually going to be a pretty solid quarterback next year, and he's going to catch some eyes next year.
interesting. Yeah, USC it was not slightly surprising, a little
They got
surprising to
Malachi
me.
Nelson, but I guess Malachi must not be ready yet. They maybe want someone who's more proven.
That's what tells me like you have to read between the lines here. And when I look at the transfer portal, when I look at stuff like that, I'm like, if if USC was fully confident that Malachi Nelson was ready to go and like take off with USC in the new Big Ten next year, they wouldn't be looking at quarterbacks in the portal. So I kind of read between the lines there.
I
But
agree.
yeah, that'll be interesting, man. This is one of those where I'm like, I really can't, I don't have a finger or pulse on where he's going to go, but I will be interested to see like what type of school actually gets him because I think that's going to tell you a lot about what Kansas State has for itself next year because he left that
I think
situation.
I don't know why, man, but I feel like Louisville. I don't know why. I can totally see him in a Louisville uniform. It
I
just
mean,
makes sense to me.
it would make sense from a coaching standpoint too. I mean, you want a guy like Jeff Brom as your coach if you're a quarterback. I could totally see that. He'd be a big upgrade over Plummer. I'll tell you that. That would be a great get for Louisville. All right, next up is Riley Leonard. Now, there's been a lot of buzz. Like, literally, the minute that man's name was entered in the portal, everyone was like, oh, he's going to Notre Dame. I mean,
And I'm pretty sure he is. Yeah.
yeah. 24/7 Sports has 100% prediction of Notre Dame on him. And like, I saw something on social media. Like, somebody went through his Instagram follows and he's following all a bunch of Notre Dame people, a bunch of Notre Dame accounts.
He's going to Notre Dame.
Like,
We
man,
don't
tampering's out
need
of
to be around
control,
the
bro.
bush on that. Yeah. I mean, speaking of tampering, Max Johnson entered the portal and like less than 24 hours later, he's committed to North Carolina. So
I mean, listen, like a lot of these dudes have connections. Like it's not like they just enter the portal with a complete blank slate of like, oh, I don't know where I'm gonna go, and then an hour later, like somebody's calling them up, like, hey, you want $1 million? Come here. Like, I don't think it's like that. Like these dudes definitely like there is backdoor communication. Like these dudes have connections. They kind of have an idea of like, hey, if I hit the portal, I kind of want to go here. I just can't like officially say it yet. I feel like that's part of it, and there definitely is like, hey, yeah, if you come here, like we'll offer you some money, and I feel like that's kind of how it goes. And I'm sure this is no different, but yeah, either way, technically it's still tampering, but we all know like there's nobody can enforce that.
there's no
But yeah, what do
rules.
you
No
think about
rules.
as far as Riley Leonard though to Notre Dame? If he goes to Notre Dame, what do you think Notre Dame's ceiling is next year with him as the quarterback versus what they got from Sam Hartman?
I think it's going to be about the same.
Different style.
I
I
don't think he's
mean,
an improvement over Sam. I don't think it's an improvement over Sam, but I don't think he's a downgrade either. I think he's going to be kind of in the same ballpark.
as a dual threat, he's a huge upgrade over Sam Hartman, but as a pure passer, I mean, that's a downgrade. It's a big downgrade.
Yeah.
And health
I'm
too.
talking in terms of impact. I think he's going to be, I think in terms of impact, I think he's going to be about what Sam Hartman was.
That makes sense. I probably would agree with that too. I think health is a huge factor too. Like, is he going to be the same player post injury that he has been? I mean, we'll see. Next up is DJ Uiagalelei. He is somehow he's got
He's
another year of
rumored to two
eligibility.
schools right now.
Somehow he's got another year of
Yeah.
eligibility and he's back in the portal because
So
his coach
far,
left. So where's he going, man?
talk about Oregon State fans having a bad year. You know what team is reaching out to him right now? Oregon.
Oh gosh.
Oregon's doing their homework on a lot of transfer quarterbacks right now. Florida State is also rumored to be in the mix for DJU.
Ooh.
So So, hey, man, that'll be an interesting one to see where DJU lands.
Yeah,
This transfer portal, man, with all the quarterbacks in it, it's going to be fun to see where all these people end up. Honestly,
it
this is
is
one thing
fun.
that's actually kind of fun about the transfer portal, seeing all these quarterbacks move around and shift. And this is one thing that's cool. Unless it's your school losing like a top tier quarterback, it's kind of cool to see the wealth get spread a little bit in terms of everyone having a solid starting quarterback, or at least like the top 30 programs after so long. You know.
Oh, 100% agreed. I think not a lot of people, including us, I don't think we're the biggest fans of how the new landscape of college football is oriented, but I will say I am enjoying this. Like, this is fun. Is the quarterback market in the transfer
In
portal
terms of
every year?
QBs, it's
Yes,
fun. Yeah.
it is. Will Rogers, Mississippi State quarterback. I mean, this one makes a ton of sense to me, man. I mean, like the dude, listen, man,
Mm-hmm.
like I think he deserves to go somewhere. I think like he could be a great bridge slash like high floor, maybe backup insurance for a really good program QB for somebody.
I haven't seen any rumors for this, but I want to bring up a wild card that I think would be so interesting, especially because this team is going through a philosophy change. Iowa,
Ooh,
because they're going to bring in a new OC. Iowa hasn't been able to throw the ball for a lick. What better to do than to get a guy who has done nothing but throw the ball for 4 or 5 years?
yeah.
So, I mean, I haven't seen any rumors for that, but if I'm Iowa, look, I feel like Iowa is going to be trying to get one of these guys in the portal, get or some kind of quarterback in the portal. They have no one there who's even remotely competent. So I'm very interested to see, and I think honestly, Auburn is going to get one of these guys we're talking about. Auburn will get one of these guys, and I think Auburn will do their due diligence. Will Howard, Tyler Van Dyke, like I think Auburn's going to reach out to all these guys and see who's going to bite.
I actually really like your Will Rogers to Iowa thing. And I know that's not there's nothing to that. We're just saying if you were Iowa and with the putrid offense you've had and the putrid quarterback play you've had over the years, like Will Rogers is perfect to me because it, like you said, it's just like, listen, we don't care. Like we just want like a guy that we just know can like actually throw the ball. Like he is just a high floor, proven veteran. Like, hey, he can actually complete a forward pass for us. Like, they're just like a low ceiling, very high floor. Just give us somebody that is not going to make us like blow our brains out every time we watch the offense anymore type of quarterback. And that is Will Rogers. And that's what Iowa fans need. So I could
I
totally
gotta
see
say,
that.
from a not being an Iowa fan, I'm gonna miss Brian Ferentz because that was just fun to watch every week in the
Me
worst
too.
way.
And the Big Ten West. I'm gonna miss the Big Ten
Yeah,
West.
all yep, the worst division to ever exist in terms of offense. Gotta love it.
Tyler Van Dyke. He's hitting the portal from Miami. I have two thoughts on this. One, Tyler Van Dyke, man, listen, I was hyping him up, especially after last year or 2021. Last year, big dip. This year, sort of an improvement, but still not the greatest. I feel like on one hand, like he definitely doesn't have that like high NFL ceiling that I originally thought that he once did. And he does kind of really choke in big moments too. But on the other hand, I'm like, well, if he just gets away from Mario Cristobal, who seems to be, the quarterback suppressor out here, if he just gets away from Cristobal, like Cristobal's kind of Jimbo, man. Cristobal is really Jimbo light. They both can recruit their butts off. They got a lot of NIL money to spend, and they both really suppressed quarterback talent. um,
Yeah,
I think if you put TVD, just get him away from Mario Cristobal, just like Haynes King, just get him away from Jimbo Fisher. Could we see like a what do you call it, a post a senior breakout or something like that? A late bloomer season for Tyler Van Dyke.
yeah, no, 100%. Um, and I just want to backtrack real quick. Shoot, sorry, but I was just scrolling through here, and I have, I think Will Rogers, man. Make perfect sense. Also, Texas Tech, Zach Kittley.
Oh yes,
That would
great.
make perfect sense.
That's a
I
good
know,
one.
I know they're kind of on Baron Morton, but if you want to bring in a veteran who's got a lot of experience and who would mesh really well with Zach Kittley, I think Will Rogers is perfect for
Bayron
Tech.
Morton gets hurt a lot, man. That I know that dude's young, but like he's been getting hurt. That would be great. Bayron Morton insurance for Texas Tech. That's a great pick there. I like that one. But as far as Tyler Van Dyke, though, what are your thoughts on that?
Look, I think he's a. I know when you were like jacking him off to begin the year, I was kind of like, but now I feel like it's switched. Now that you're more like low on him, I feel like I'm higher on him, and I feel like that's because I know he's escaping Cristobal, and I've watched Van Dyke and I've watched him make good throws. I've watched him have a strong arm with like a good release. So the thing about Van Dyke is, I've seen him just look like he flicks the ball, and that ball travels really well, and that is NFL. That's an NFL arm talent. Now, can he translate that? We'll see. Thing is, Miami's been a dumpster fire, so I'd like to see what he can do in a better system. Maybe someone like a Tyler Van Dyke. Do you think Tyler Van Dyke could be better than Kyle McCord if he's throwing to Marvin Harrison and all that? I think he might. I think if Tyler Van Dyke went to play for Ohio State, there's a chance he gets drafted in the first 2 rounds. Um, Granted, I don't think Ohio State's going to offer him, but I'm really intrigued to see where Tyler Van Dyke ends up. We know UNC is off the mat because they just took that Texas A&M transfer. Maybe Tyler Van Dyke messes around and ends up in Washington. I mean, there's
Ooh.
a lot of teams right now who are looking for that new bridge quarterback to their next big guy. Washington is certainly one of them. Um, so yeah,
If I'm Tyler Van Dyke, I can revive my career by picking a portal destination
or UCLA.
coach with a coach that is known for developing quarterbacks and is good at scheming things open. Because if I'm Tyler Van Dyke and have a good quarterback that can put me in the system and actually can utilize me properly, I can have my career revived. Yeah, you know how you mentioned Louisville as a good destination for some of these guys. I could actually see like Louisville as a good destination for TVD with Brom scheming up some things
I
for him.
completely agree.
Somewhere like
I think he
that.
would do good well there. Yeah, I think he would do
Somewhere like
well.
that with a
I
competent
think
coach.
Will Howard and Van Dyke would be perfect like Louisville fits,
Yeah. It'll be interesting, man.
or
I
even NC State, even NC State, man.
Yes, we didn't bring them. Yeah, we didn't bring them up, but I would agree. There's rumors that MJ Morris may be hitting the portal, which is not good
He
for
is in the
NC
portal.
State.
He is in the portal.
Oh, he is in the portal. Oh shoot,
MJ
how'd I
Morris.
miss that?
Yep, he entered the portal. Yep,
Oh, I
yep.
missed that.
I
Oh, I
posted it
didn't.
in our chat a couple days ago. Yeah,
Whoops, I forgot to throw that one on the sheet. Well, MJ
but yeah,
Morris is
MJ
in the
Morris
portal.
is in the
Well,
portal.
well, screw it. It's not on the sheet, but I just brought it up, so that's next on our list. MJ Morris. Well, first of all I gotta say is, man,
Yeah, man.
if you're NC State, man, like they benched MJ Morris so they could preserve a year of his eligibility to close out the year,
And then
and then
he
he goes and
used
hits
it
the
to
portal.
transfer.
Come on, man.
He's like,
Like,
"Thanks for saving my eligibility, baby. I'm out."
I'm sorry, man, but like, listen. This is listen. The transfer portal is fun and stuff, but like, this is one of those situations where I'm like, I'm actually kind of pissed off. I'm NC State. Like, I'm sorry, bro. Like, you have it set for you at NC State, man. Yeah, it's not a blue blood program. This team went 9-3. They always have good defenses. Like Dave Doran is a great coach. I You have it set for you to be on an actual very solid middle tier team that can probably be close to winning 10 games a year, potentially compete for the ACC. Like you have it set for you, bro. Like if you go somewhere else, like if you go bag chasing at like Miami, are you going to be more set up for success at a place like Miami than NC State? I'd argue that man is better set up for success at NC State. Like I just got to say, man, don't MJ Morris, please don't make that type of move. Just don't.
Watch MJ Morris go to Iowa. I can just like picture the jersey.
Listen, I don't know all the details, but this is one of those where I'm like, man, the grass may not always be greener on the other side. So,
True.
like, NC State is a great program, bro. Like, they won 9 games this year.
Did KJ Jefferson enter the portal? Or was he thinking about it?
Um,
I heard that he was thinking about entering the portal, but I don't know if he entered. I don't
I
think he
don't think
entered.
he entered as of yet, but if he does, we'll throw his name into this segment on future pods. But these are all that we know are official. So I'm going to add MJ Morris here real quick to the sheet. So next up, now this is a name that I don't think maybe a lot of people have known about. Max Brosmer, the quarterback of UNH, otherwise known as New Hampshire. Now, we admitted don't know a whole lot about this guy. I don't think many people know about him, but he is a pretty darn good FCS quarterback that is getting some Power 5 love, some FBS love here, and he's going to be coveted. So this will be interesting, man. This is a guy that's coming up from the FBS level, very likely to come play what could be Power 5 football.
He's going to Minnesota. That's my guess. Athene Kaliakmanis is in the portal, so they need a quarterback.
Go somewhere up north where it's cold to another place where it's up north and cold.
Exactly.
That's what we like. Yeah, I could see that, man. Max Brosmer, Minnesota quarterback. That sounds like a Minnesota quarterback to
me. It does sound like a Minnesota quarterback. I feel prediction. Like one of these guys, MJ Morris, I could see going to Minnesota too. I feel like Minnesota will get one of these like ranked 10 to 15, like best guy, because they need a quarterback. Definitely. I
can see that.
Yeah. And Wisconsin might try to get some insurance too, because Mordecai has been kind of bad. So Wisconsin could be a player for some of these guys too.
I was just about to say, I actually wouldn't be surprised at all if Wisconsin is a player. In fact, I think Wisconsin will get one of these guys. They are definitely a quiet player, especially with the new Big Ten. I think it's going to be an attractive destination and a good coach. Last guy Baylor on the list.
They're looking for a QB.
What's that?
Baylor's also looking for a QB because Shapen's in the portal.
Baylor, yeah. I would agree with that. Last up on the list, Grayson McCall, Coastal Carolina quarterback. Now, truth be told, this man's name should have been in the portal last year, but then something with his grades.
Last year.
Something with his grades. Well,
you're supposed to go to Auburn, man.
Somebody must have got those grades up because he's in the portal now and he's eligible. Did he graduate? Maybe he graduated. Maybe he's a grad.
So what I heard is that he wanted to go to Auburn, but the degree that he had his credits in, Auburn didn't offer.
Oh, that's right.
So
that's right.
He wouldn't be able to like graduate or transfer his credits, so he had to go back to Coastal.
And even in today's age of college football, that alone was what prevented him from going to Auburn.
But hey, man, so it's rumored pretty heavily that NC State's going after Grayson McCall pretty hard.
That makes sense.
They had a sit-down meeting with him yesterday. Like they invited him over, and yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if any day it gets announced Grayson McCall to NC State. But I'm actually, you know what? Pump the brakes, because I think Grayson McCall is a guy who's going to get phone calls from Wisconsin, Iowa, Minnesota's of the world. I truly think so. He's going to have a little bit of a market, and we'll see. I can't wait. I can't wait. In terms of quarterbacks, man, and for the transfer portal every year, the quarterback movement is kind of exciting. I won't lie.
No, it definitely
really is. Especially it gives us so much to talk about going into next year too, and win totals and projecting how a team's going to do. That's the exciting part.
And I think it's like, NFL free agency. It's like NFL free agency when a good player is on the market, there's maybe like 4 or 5, maybe 6 teams that are in the mix, and you're like, oh, that would be interesting. But in college football, like there is legitimately like a whole wide open field. Like it could be anywhere. Some of these guys, like we have no clue. Like this could be like 30 different schools. Like we have legitimately no clue. Some of it is very random. And it's just like, whoa, like that's like, it's like picking a name out of a hat, blindly. It is pretty fun.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's the list for now in terms of quarterbacks. Now, in terms of non-quarterback players, there's not a whole lot. I threw a few wide receivers on here. Josh Kelly from Washington State.
Good player.
This dude's a good player, yes. And I think his 24/7 rating is a little low. I feel like they do this, man. I feel like they lowball these types of dudes. Like, yeah, he's not got a huge body, but like this dude would absolutely ball out at USC and Lincoln Riley's system. Like this guy would ball out at Texas. You know what I mean? Just because he doesn't have the size, like this dude is athletic as hell. He would ball out at an elite program, I think, in a good offense.
I think he will end up, maybe not in like one of those top 5 programs, but I think he will end up at a competitive school.
I mean, all Lincoln Riley seems to do is go poach like Pac-12 conference members, players. So, I mean,
who knows? Maybe that's why he jumped in the portal to begin with. Maybe he's like, oh shit, Lincoln called, let me jump in.
I mean, I could totally see that, dude. Like, Lincoln Riley poached UCLA's DC. We'll talk about that in a minute. Like that, Lincoln Riley is no shame. Chris Tyree, wide receiver from Notre Dame. There's a couple of Notre Dame wide receivers already in the portal, which is kind of interesting. Chris Tyree, definitely be a market for him. I mean, I really have no idea. Off the top of my head, I'm thinking like, I mean, we keep talking about Auburn, but Auburn needs a quarterback. Auburn also needs some receivers.
I think a
You
little bit of
know,
everything.
yeah, there's a lot of teams I feel like that could use some receivers. I mean, the whole board is wide open, man.
That's what's cool
Uh,
about all this, just all the speculation. I can't wait to see where everyone goes. Colin Lacey, South Bama. I can't wait to see where he goes. And I'll say this: I knew he was going to enter the portal. You can't be
yeah,
as good as he is on that team. And you know who else I think is going to enter the portal, who I'm surprised hasn't entered yet? Malik Washington.
yep,
I
from
have no idea
Virginia.
how he's not in the portal. Yeah, I have no idea how he's not in the portal. He's so good. There's no way he wants to waste his career at Virginia. He's gonna. I feel like he's gonna be in the portal, and within a week. Like, there's no way.
Yes, Malik Washington would draw some high level interest, and
Malik
Colin
Washington would be
Lacey
drawing. Yeah, like he would have Bama after him. Like,
Colin Lacey only had an 89 transfer grade. Again, I think that's lowballed a little bit. Like Colin Lacey is a power five like
I feel like the
receiver.
guys who grade some of these dudes just don't watch them. There's like, oh, well, he played at South Bama and they won 6 games. Okay, 3 star.
And usually the talent translates. Like usually I feel like from what we've seen so far in this new era is that the guys that come up from G5 that ball out of G5, they also ball out at the P5 level.
Yeah, they're good players.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're just good players and the talent translates. It's like moving up
Mhm.
to the NFL. Like some players, like a lot of players, they're good in college. That it translates immediately to the NFL. Same thing from G5 moving up to
I'll tell you
P5.
right now, as an OSU fan, I would love to get Colin Lacey. I would love that so much. I know they won't do it. South Bama is just a little bit too high of a level of a team for us to take a transfer from. But man, oh man, I would love to get Colin Lacey so much. That would be amazing.
Well, it wouldn't be Colin Lacey's first time blowing out another team at Boone Pickens Stadium.
I know he can play for us this time.
Yeah. All right. On the defensive side, I only have one name in here, and it's an FCS guy, Joey Slackman from UPenn. He is the highest current rated defensive line transfer in 24/7 with a 92 grade transfer rating. And based on how I've seen some of these other offensive players we just mentioned, like their grades have been lowballed. If their grades are that and this dude's a 92, this dude must be legit.
Yeah. And I'll tell you what, just based on the area he's in, I'm telling you right now, this dude is a lock for one of those upper echelon Big Ten schools. He's going to Penn
Penn
State, Michigan,
State.
or Ohio State. Like yeah, like
Yeah.
he's legit in that area. Like he's going to one of those schools.
Yeah. I 100%. And his name is Joey Slackman. Like that just
That
screams.
screams Penn State.
Yeah, it really does. It really does. Oh man, that's funny.
And that's not, and I'm not just saying that because he was going to Penn. I mean, like, it's like the most Penn State D lineman name ever, like for like an interior lineman.
So, how about some coaching carousel news since we last recorded? So, Syracuse has hired former Georgia defensive backs coach Fran Brown. This was an interesting hire. There's a lot of directions Syracuse could have went here, and this one sort of came out of left field a little bit. Not the news of him being hired, but in terms of like the type of candidate that we thought Syracuse would go after. Did not think they would go after a Georgia defensive backs coach.
So what I read is that this Georgia defensive backs coach has a really good foothold in Jersey, Pennsylvania, New York, and has a lot of close coaching circles with like the high school organizations in those areas. So he can really identify talent in those areas, and he has a good enough relationship to be able to recruit in those areas. And I think they're also hoping he can use his Georgia pedigree and say, look at all these Georgia DBs that went to the NFL. I coached them. Come play for me. And I think Syracuse is going to try to use that to build a great defense. I truly think Syracuse is going to try to win by defense. And that's the whole goal here because they know that they're not going to have the money to go out and get these $1 million quarterbacks. They know they're not going to have the money to go out there and keep these $1 million running back if they ever do get one outside of Sean Tucker, who they were lucky enough to keep before he went to the NFL. So we'll see, man. We'll see.
Yeah,
That's my
Fran
theory.
Brown. No, it's a great theory. It makes a lot of sense, and you can definitely tell by this hire that that's the route that Syracuse wants to go. They're looking at talent acquisition. They want to get some Jimmys and Joes. Now, Syracuse, you can't get Georgia's Jimmys and Joes, but if Syracuse can bump its recruiting level up a bit, that's a good place to start. Especially in the ACC, I think there's a huge tier to climb up if you can get some better recruits than a lot of these Boston colleges and Georgia Techs, those types of schools. But you can quickly elevate into the top like 5 or 6 of the ACC if you just start recruiting a little bit better than those types of schools. So it makes sense. I mean, Fran Brown, like you said, New Jersey native, and he was ranked the number 8 recruiter in the nation according to 24/7 as well. So yeah, hey, it checks out.
I don't put too much credence into that because I mean, if you're on the Georgia staff, you're naturally going to get some 4 or 5 stars from the money you got. But yeah,
Fair point. Next up, now we made a video about Oregon State, and I know a lot of Beavers fans, maybe those of you who've just recently subscribed to our channel, maybe you saw us from that video we talked about Oregon State. Well, when we made that video, they had not hired Trent Bray officially as their new head coach. Well, now he is the head coach. He was promoted from defensive coordinator, of course. And hey, this makes a ton of sense to me. I mean, think about it. We talked about what Syracuse just now was wanting to do and the direction that they went. If you're Oregon State, your biggest problem right now is short-term stability. You just want somebody that can get you that short-term stability. And it makes total sense that they went with somebody that's passionate about the program, that's an alum, that was in-house. I mean, it makes total sense to me. You want somebody that actually cares, that can actually guide the program through what could be a dark time, a tough transition. So Trent Bray provides some short-term stability, and it makes sense to me.
yeah. I mean, given their circumstances and the fact that they're not going to have that conference revenue coming in, the best thing to do was to promote from within because you're not going to be able to go out and take anyone or offer someone a lot of money to come play for you. They're in a transition period right now. Oregon State is in survival mode, and this is the best thing that they can do. So a lot of Oregon State fans were saying that Jonathan Smith wasn't winning anything until he promoted Trent Bray to DC. So they think that, Trent Bray will be just as good as Jonathan Smith. Now, could be some copium, could be something to that. I don't know. We'll find out. But I think this is the best thing that they could have done given the circumstances.
Yeah, I mean, the results, I mean, what are the odds that Trent Bray ends up being just as good of a head coach and developer as Jonathan Smith? I'd say unlikely, but we don't know.
You can come close, then you're at least doing well there.
But in terms of the process of getting to this hire, it makes a lot of sense to me. So I would say good job by Oregon State in terms of the type of candidate and the process you got to making this hire. So that makes total sense there. Indiana. Now, I made a quick short about this. They hired James Madison head coach Kirk Cignetti. We haven't had a chance to fully expand on it on this pod. I mean, Kirk Cignetti, listen, James Madison head coach, I think that speaks for itself. Look at what he's done at James Madison. He's been there for 6 years now. Takes him up to the FBS, started dominating the FBS, the Sun Belt. I mean, great hire for Indiana.
And I have a crystal ball. James Madison's solid quarterback, Jordan McLeod, entered the transfer portal today. I think he's following his coach to Indiana.
Oh, yeah. He's going to be a Hoosier. Yeah. But in terms of the hire itself, though, for Indiana, this is as good of a hire as I think you could possibly get. I would give it an A. If I had to grade it right now, I'd give it a very high grade. Yeah, I mean, if you're Indiana, the goal is, listen, let's be real here. Yeah, the Big Ten East is going away, so you don't have to play Penn State, Ohio State, Michigan every year and just have no chance to ever win anything. But at the same time, you have 4 new programs that are just way better programs than you entering the Big Ten. The path to getting to a Big Ten championship is very difficult still. In fact, it may even be harder in the future still, even with the divisions of dissolving. So if you're Indiana, listen, with realistic expectations, I think if you got a guy that can give you a floor and get you to bowl games every year, that should be considered successful at Indiana. I think that's what Kurt Cinetti can do. Maybe every now and then you get a good scheduling draw. You can win 8-9 games. Yeah. I think that's the level set expectations. That's what they should be. So
I
very good
agree.
hire. Very good hire for Indiana.
I agree.
Houston hires Tulane head coach Willie Fritz. Now, this one was just announced today. This is Fritz's first Power Five job. He's 63 years old, but he is now coaching at the Power Five level. He was at Tulane for 8 years. Willie Fritz was. So he was a Tulane man, and now he is going to Houston. The timing of this makes a lot of sense. I mean, he almost nearly went to Georgia Tech last year and turned that down to last second. So he instead goes to Houston. So what do you have to say about this? If
I think it's a great hire for Houston. I mean, they got rid of Dana Holgerson, who I think deserves to be a coach in some capacity at some level, but maybe not a head coach. Holgerson's an offensive coordinator. We talked about how some coaches are just great coordinators, not meant to be head coaches. That's Dana Holgerson. I think many schools would be more than happy to have a Dana Holgerson as an OC. But with that being said, I think Willie Fritz, he's proven that he can win consistently with lesser talent and recruiting. And that's kind of the book that Houston is in right now. Now, given your power, quote unquote, power forward status, you should be able to, and you're in Texas, you should be able to at least take at least a slight step up from where you're at right now, especially if you can get the boosters on board. So I think Willie Fritz, and then the Big 12 is open as well. So I think Willie Fritz is fully capable of getting Houston to being a consistent 8-win team and then maybe an occasional contender every other year or every few years. I think it's a great hire.
I agree, I think it's a great hire. If I'm a Houston fan right now, I'm pretty happy about this. And my one reservation, however, would be Willie Fritz. Definitely a lot of his success at Tulane. Is that because of Willie Fritz or is it because of a really good quarterback carrying that team? Because that's my one drawback here. It's like a lot of these guys, man, like a lot of your success can be if you just had a really good quarterback and you like won the lottery and had a good quarterback at a G5 level, that can win you a lot of games. And maybe it's not necessarily your coaching ability, but you just had a really good QB. I don't think that's necessarily the case here. I still think Fritz is a pretty good coach, but I also think like Michael Pratt has a lot to do with his success at Tulane recently.
Mm-hmm.
So my one little drawback, but even with that said, I still think it's a very good hire. And if I'm Houston, I'm pretty happy about this. So we'll see if it works out. I think it will. I think it will. San Diego State hired Colorado OC Sean Lewis. Now, this was old news, but we didn't really get to talk about this one. I think this is a great hire for San Diego State. We talked about how, listen, man, like you don't just get clowned and demoted at Colorado for after like you had one of the best offenses in the country, especially at the beginning of the year, and you had a top 25 offense, and then you get demoted. Like, of course, that dude doesn't want to be there anymore. And he went and dipped immediately and went to San Diego State. Now he gets to be a head coach. If I'm San Diego State, this
Mm-hmm.
is a pretty dang good hire, man. It's still a G5 program, but like, listen, San Diego State, they have dealt with the Iowa style of football for so long and having incompetent offenses. This is like got to be the best breath of fresh air you could possibly have. Like San Diego State fans will finally get to watch like competent offenses that are going to put points on the board. This is a good hire.
100%. No, I agree. One thing that we've noticed in the last, I'd say 2, 3, 4 years, a lot of these ADs, I think they're getting smarter because we're seeing a lot of smart hires. I think we see more smart hires than we see dumb hires. Now, yes, every year we see a few hires where we're like, what? What were you thinking? Are you trying to win games? Are you trying to tank your program? But for the most part, like we see a solid number of hires every year because and think about this, Shub. The number, and I was thinking about this the other day, and I feel like other than the transfer portal, I think this is what's also contributing to seeing more parity in college football. The number of good head coaches or just coaches in general who are finally being recognized and promoted to positions where they can make a difference, I think is increasing. And we're starting to see that. And the G5 has become like the sweet spot for these guys to prove their mettle. And when they, generally speaking, I mean, when these guys move up, they usually find at least a solid floor at a Power 5 level. So I really like it, man. Looking forward to seeing what it looks like 5 years down the line.
Yeah, I love this hire, and I'm looking forward to San Diego State now in the Mountain West. I think the Mountain West is going to continue to be one of the better and more fun G5 leagues of the near future, especially since Oregon State, Washington State are going to be, Notre Daming with the Mountain West, like not in the conference, but still kind of in the conference with the scheduling agreement. So that'll be fun. That'll be fun. Boise State promotes interim head coach slash sitting defensive coordinator Spencer Danielson. He is, by the way, he is the first interim coach in FBS history to win a Mountain West title. So you're talking about how maybe
Wow.
Boise State had a little addition by subtraction with Andy Avalos. Well, seems like Spencer Danielson is the
Proof in the
guy.
pudding right there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
man. I mean, this team rallied around him and they went out, go 3-0, and then they win the Mountain West Championship and look a lot better. I mean, there's something
That's
to that.
crazy.
There's something to that. And Boise State said, hey, give you the job. So good for him, man. He's been at Boise State for a while now, since 2017, and he's had a variety of roles, a lot of different positional coaching roles and stuff. So, yeah, good for Boise State, man. Even though doing stuff, making long-term decisions based off of short-term sample size probably isn't the best idea, but I think this I think I give a pass to. I think this makes sense. So, hey, it worked out for Northwestern too. Sometimes you never know. Sometimes the interim actually ends up being the guy. You just don't know it yet.
Yeah, that's true. Usually not, but hey, here recently interims have had a good run.
Amen to that. So now with that being said, there are 8 or 7 current job openings in the FBS. We got New Mexico, UL Monroe, UTEP, Duke, Middle Tennessee, James Madison, Nevada, and Tulane. So Duke is the only Power 5 job opening right now. The rest of those are all G5. So I think the biggest noise of the coaching carousel is probably past us, but that Duke job maybe get a little interesting. But other than that, I think we've got the most fireworks out of the coaching carousel. Really quick, some notable coordinator hires that have happened. Penn State hires Kansas offensive coordinator Andy Kotelnicki.
That's big.
A+ hire. A+ hire. That is big. That is very big. Listen, man,
They
James
need
Franklin.
offense. That's what's been keeping Penn State back. It's the offense. And with Yursich gone, I mean, Yursich was a good coordinator in his own right, but for some reason couldn't put the pieces together at Penn State. Kotelnicki, really good disguise offensive coordinator. And yeah, man, I'm interested to see what he can do, because what they did at Kansas is pretty fantastic.
Yeah, this is an A+ hire. This might be one of the most impactful coordinator hires of next year, and I'm sure we'll talk about in win totals next year. This is big time from Penn State. A+ from me.
100%.
USC hires UCLA defensive coordinator Danton Lynn. Does Lincoln Riley have like any shameful bone in his body? This man just says straight up, like, this dude is poaching. Like, this dude would like poach like from like members of his own family. Like,
Lincoln Riley doesn't care, man. He
doesn't.
goes and plays against you, and he's like, "Oh, that's a good player." Okay, calls his booster, "Hey, throw a millie this guy's way."
UCLA, you're hiring UCLA's DC. Like, there is no shame. Oh, my arch rival is a good defense. All right,
and
come
dang
coach
well
here.
USC was trying to get Morgan Scalley too, but they couldn't get him to bite.
Yes, Morgan Scalley turned down the USC job. Yep, that was the rumor, and they offered him a lot of money, a lot more money.
I 100% believe it. 100%, especially because he goes off and stays in the conference and hires freaking UCLA's DC. Come on now. You know who? If you're gonna toss a bag, you should have hired Phil Parker. Get the voodoo on your side.
I mean, I don't know. Now that USC is going to be in the Big Ten next year, and Lincoln Riley like realizes Iowa's a conference opponent, he might be like, "Oh wait, you're a conference opponent now? Oh, come here." Yeah. But anyways, in terms of the actual hire itself, I mean, listen, UCLA's defense was kind of bad going into this year, and they took a huge leap this year. So there's some smoke here. But then again, it is a Lincoln Riley team, so I'm going to have to kind of believe it to see it. But objectively on paper, this is a solid hire. So I'll give it that. And then lastly, this one is like, If anything, this is more of a meme than an actual hire. This is like a meme hire. Arkansas has hired Bobby Petrino as their new offensive coordinator. You want to talk about no shame? You want to talk
Saturday Night
about like
Live
no
skit right
shame?
there.
This dude was literally fired from like a whole scandal where he was cheating on his wife with like a 25-year-old assistant. The dude's like 65 years old. Like that was not that long ago. That was like what, 10 years ago?
Hey,
Wasn't
but
even
he
that
can
long
win.
ago.
But damn it, he can win football games.
God damn it, Arkansas. That's SEC right there. That is SEC desperation. That is like, hey,
The
we do
SEC doesn't
not
care.
care.
Hey, Hugh Freeze, like it doesn't matter what you do, man. It doesn't matter what you do. If you can win football games, you can do whatever you want in the SEC.
What's the Mike Tomlin meme? Like, we do not care. That is Arkansas. We do not care. Bring him back. Bring him back, baby. I actually thought this was a troll. Like I thought this was one of those fake like Twitter burner accounts that's like trying to troll everybody. When I saw this, and then I was like, oh my god! And I saw it was McMurphy, and I had to click on McMurphy's profile. I was like, this is him. Like, oh my god, this is actual legit. Like that is you can't write this script, man. That is hilarious. That is just that is funny to me.
Yeah,
All right,
that is
well,
funny.
that's a pretty good note to end this podcast on, man. We went pretty long here, so a lot
Yeah,
of good
we really dove
information.
into the weaves. Oh, underrated transfer portal quarterback, very underrated. EJ Warner from Temple. He's in the portal.
Ooh, yes.
Very underrated. I think he can start at Power Five schools and be pretty dang solid. And I think we'll see him land at one. So a lot of people when he commits somewhere can be like, "Who's that?" He's pretty dang good. He just played on a really crappy team.
I don't know. You want to talk about like taking shots in the dark? That sounds like a Baylor quarterback.
Oh, I could see
EJ
it.
Warner, Temple to Baylor, going the
I
Matt
could
Rule
totally
route.
see. I could see Baylor or Cincy. Like I could totally see it.
Yeah, and that's just complete blind, like shot in the dark, just throwing out
Oh,
a name.
absolutely. Yeah, I don't have any. Yeah, 100%. This is all shot in the dark.
Yeah, but hey, I could see it. I could see it. I could see the lower
or,
lower level
or your boy Mitch
P5.
Griffith might end up at Baylor.
Oof. Yeah, Mitch Griffiths. Ugh. Yeah, man, that's you don't need to talk about that. All right, I think we've gone long enough. We talked about a lot, covered a lot of ground here. So if you're still out there watching, listening, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. And we don't have games this weekend, so enjoy your college football bowl season and coaching carousel news and transfer portal news, because I have a feeling the transfer portal is about to heat up. So
It's
be
gonna be
ready.
nuts. There's already like a few hundred athletes in there. It's nuts.
Yeah, and it's gonna heat up. So looking forward to it. But without further ado, this is the Saturday Scholars for Zan and Shoops signing out. See y'all later. Have a great day.